I don't suggest that everybody has to be loud, but I do suggest that if you're in the communication fields, you know how important and life-changing that function can be.
Welcome to the Smart Talk series, the show for professionals who want strategies, tips, and real talk about all things PR, marketing, and social media. Your host is Melissa Vela Williamson, an award-winning, accredited, and nationally recognized PR pro and communication thought leader. And now your host, Melissa Vela Williamson.
Hello and welcome to the Smart Talk series. I'm Melissa Vela Williamson. This season, our focus is on milestone moments. Today, I'm joined by Claudia Romo Edelman. Claudia is a global mobilization expert, catalyst for social change, and marketer for social causes. She is a recognized speaker, activist, thought leader, and author, and upcoming entrepreneur. Welcome, Claudia.
Hola, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm so excited to speak with you, and our audience is super excited to learn more about you. Tell us about your background and your career focus today.
Well, thank you so much. I was born and raised a marketer pretty much my entire life. I've been doing elevation of narratives, and like I started as a journalist. I am a Mexican Swiss diplomat. That basically, if you're from Latin America, I would say I was a Mafalda, a marketer, Mafalda, if you want. I grew up in Mexico City. Although my family is from the north of Mexico, I think that I had my first real encounter with who I am and what I do when I was 15 years old or something like that. In Mexico, there was a massive earthquake, a series of earthquakes in 1985 that made everyone leave their homes and start looking for your families or looking for shelter and so on. And that was an experience that marked me in understanding that I had a voice, because I started screaming out loud when I thought that there was a person trapped in the building, so much that I was able to call the attention of 20 men that came and started pushing that wall and rescued a girl.
Wow.
And when I saw that mother hugging the girl, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. The feeling of being useful is nothing short to anything that I have felt so far. But also, Melissa, it gave me the sense of like, oh, my father has been complaining about like, you're so loud. And I'm like, oh my God, it's great to be loud. And so I've been doing that for the last 30 years, trying to, scream out loud and trying to get the attention of people to the things that they might not see. To provide voice to the people that might not be heard. And I had the privilege of doing that for the last 30 years for the most amazing causes, working and having the privilege to do it for the most amazing organizations, and being able to be a social entrepreneur, turning now into an entrepreneur for the last 11 years here in the US.
That's incredible. And I love that you had that milestone moment or turning point as a young person where you found, look, if I actually go a little bit against some of the cultural stories or scripts that I'm getting as a young person, if I am loud and if I make noise in a purposeful way, it can help people. And it can shine a light and bring attention to situations and causes that matter. I think that's a beautiful way to start a conversation and really think about the work we do as communicators.
Absolutely. And I'm not suggesting, Melissa, that everybody has to be loud. I'm just suggesting that it was very liberating for me to be able to be myself and to find it early on that I had a voice, that I was loud, and that was not a bad thing, that could be a good thing leading to good results the way that I saw it. So I was already starting to be tamed, right? Like I was like, calladita te ves más bonita, just like be quiet and be a good señorita that doesn't raise her voice. And I had that opportunity early on to say, like, wait, I think that there's moments in which you don't have to be quiet and calladito te ves más bonita. There's an absolute need for, like for uncovering and bringing voice to others. And I have felt that all throughout, because I spent my life being a communicator, a marketer, a PR person, journalism, you name it. I've changed like same wine, different bottles throughout my life. So I don't suggest that everybody has to be loud, but I do suggest that if you're in the communication fields, you know how important and life-changing that function can be.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I like that phrase that you use, same wine, different bottles, because sometimes the bottle is everything. I've told people this story about my own career journey that, you find your way moment by moment, milestone by milestone, step by step. And it's not a comfortable path, especially if you're the first in your family to work in the industry you do or do something new, right? But depending on which bottle or environment you are in or put yourself in, it makes all the difference because some of me being my whole self, like you described, right? Really feeling more comfortable in my skin. That was a great fit for certain environments, and that was not a good fit for other environments. And I have learned and really share with others like sometimes you can be the change, and sometimes you need to make the change and get yourself in a different bottle, right, Claudia?
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. And I love that you brought up that phrase in Spanish about, I believe it's translated like you're prettier when you're quieter.
Yes.
Because yes, you and I met. I had the great fortune to meet you in person after you gave a very inspiring talk and truth-telling talk at Latina Fest in Los Angeles recently. And I was there because I was part of the author's experience. And so Brenda Duran from that area is one of the contributing authors for my book, Latinas in Public Relations. And I will tell you, Claudia, that phrase in Spanish is that in at least one of the stories, if not maybe two. And there were so many different variations of Latinas being told to be quieter, smaller, prettier, right? And my point of view and what I share both with data and then different lived professional personal experiences and the other 14 other authors who joined me who work in public relations basically all told the same story that we were either brought up or in the workplace kind of positioned in or told overtly to blend in more. But actually, data shows that women need to self promote more to advance in their careers, to be seen as leaders, to share a different point of view like you're doing professionally. So I think it's really important. I just want to underline that expression and how that kept coming up for us. And we are really working to disrupt that story and change that point of view for, in particular, Latinas who have a little more assumptions and expectations both on language use, whether to speak Spanish or not. And there's just that feeling of good enough. And you really have to work to fight that story or the narrative or kind of the path people put in front of you with some of that, in some ways, oppression.
But you know what? In a way, I have news for PR professionals, which is there's a new Latino. The Hispanic Sentiment Study, which is the study that the World Human Foundation has done and commissions from 2018 to date, has consecutive data that is tracking precisely that. What is the sentiment of the Latino community? And I can tell you that in 2025, the biggest finding that we had is that calladita se ve más bonita is off. So if we were up to now in a way trying to understand and trying to see if we were worth it. That time has passed. We know we're worth it. We're just now trying to understand how are we worth it? Where is that worthiness coming from? And how are we going to make sure that other people see it? And I tell you this based on the Hispanic Sentiment Study data of 2025, compared to 2018, the level of awareness of the community, of their own contributions to the country. That means how much we know, how many we are, how young we are, how much we contribute to the economy, how much is our purchasing power, how much employment we generate, how much do we contribute to voting and getting people elected, has risen from 14% in 2018, where only 14% of the Latino community knew anything about our own power, meaning we were in a distorted mirror where we felt ourselves small, although we were big, has risen to 42% in 2023 to 77% in 2025. So there's a new Latino that is self-aware, that is empowered, and has higher expectations. So watch out for communicators in the way in which you're talking to us, because 77% of Latinos know how influential we are. The big piece that is throwing out this study is saying that there's a massive disconnect between the self-awareness we have and the social recognition and the external recognition that we're getting. And that is what is causing a potential recession. And I'm not talking about an economic recession. I'm talking about a recognition recession where there's this new Latino that is not going to take it anymore because we know our power and we're going to start making choices about who is representing us the way that we're doing. And we're going to start having demands where calladito no te ves más bonito is long gone. And now it's going to be like, who is standing by me so that I can know where to make my choices of work, choices of loyalty, choices of trust, choices of purchasing.
No, that's all really helpful. It's super important. And you're right, exactly. It's as we're kind of coming to light in our contributions and understanding that. I love the work that you do, particularly in the authorship space and the communication space, because as you know, if we document and share our own stories, if we as PR pros are more thoughtful about representing our actual stakeholders, our actual community members in our visuals, in our video scripts, in the interview type questions we do, for example, right? If we're more thoughtful and tailor it, we will represent our actual community, and it will be more mainstream to see more Hispanic and Latino representation because just by numbers, that's a reality of many communities. So I think that intersecting all these ideas is going to be helpful for us as communicators because you and I were talking offline, Claudia, for a minute. I was telling you a story about someone who had reached out to me, telling me a story that their organization, they felt like their organization wasn't doing enough to really cultivate a deeper relationship and a more supportive relationship of their Hispanic members. And the feedback they got from their supervisor was, well, there's only about 5% of our members are Hispanic. And it's like, well, duh, because you don't actually show them in visuals. You don't have much to offer them in more than one language, particularly in the area you're at. Maybe there's more need for Spanish language and toolkits and resources, for example. And so, yeah, if you don't represent and show respect and belonging, people don't feel like they belong. So I appreciate what you're saying. And like you said, they'll take their business, they'll take their relationship, they'll take their contributions as an employee, they'll take their money elsewhere. So I think there's power in that. And for us to make those choices, I think that's going to be where we can really help change things. So I appreciate all that. Well, this season is centered on milestone moments. And I'm thinking about that topic a lot because it's the 10th anniversary of my business, MVW Communications. And I'm very honest and direct with people, particularly women, that, I started my business in response to a need that I had for my family to just be more uh, centrally located, easier to get up and about and kind of cut off some commuting so I could be a more primary part of my kids' school lives and day lives. So there wasn't any big ambition or ideas in the beginning, but that was a big moment for me of change. And it's really unlocked so many opportunities in my personal life and my professional life. And so thinking about milestone moments, can you tell us about a moment that you experienced or maybe one that you made happen that was impactful in your career?
I love milestones. I love celebrating rituals that consolidate moments, and I think that I had. When you invited me to this podcast, I started thinking of the milestones of my life and how like I started literally transforming myself from being a journalist, right? Like I trained on communications. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I didn't. I thought I was not talented enough, so I went into journalism, and then I started moving into PR from journalism to media manager, then PR, then communications, and then marketing, which I think that that's where I have done a lot of the time, and I have done it. I think that I started my career. I left Mexico 31 years ago as out of college, just the fresh communications journalist, like experienced person. My first job was as a Mexican diplomat representing Mexico in as part of the foreign service in Switzerland and England, France. I lived in Europe for the last 20 years. In the middle of that, I moved from by a national agenda, meaning Mexico to one country, to the multilateral world. So I joined the World Economic Forum, where I was working there for almost 10 years, managing PR for them and bringing, bringing spice to the brand of the World Economic Forum, which was well known a brand for 2,000 people, but all of a sudden we needed to be bigger for 5 million people to support their heads of state coming and valuing the power of dialogue. Then I moved to the United Nations system in order to do pretty much the same, but for the humanitarian work. So my first job there was to join the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, when I started managing brand. So refugees were not on the agenda. No one cared about them. So I started managing the PR piece and the brand piece by installing social media, the first ever Twitter account, the first ever, like anything for the refugee agency at that time. That was fabulous. And then managing a group of celebrities, including Angelina Jolie, to spice up the brand, to bring PR in a proper way to elevate the relevance of people on the move. And then I moved to the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria, where AIDS pretty much was fatigued, right? Like the world was tired of dealing with HIV/AIDS without any win, and trying to figure out ways in which we could bring more excitement and transform the organization, which was a financial organization, into an emotion. And I remember actually Bono telling me that, like when I got the job as head of marketing of the Global Fund, he said, like, you need to transform this place into an emotion. People have to feel through it. And we launched Product Red that to date has involved more than 50 brands to be part of it, and has brought more than $700 million to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. And literally, I think that has helped save more than 45 million lives, and campaigned to eliminate mother-to-child transmission of HIV and AIDS. And all of that seemed impossible before. So I've been surrounded by people that believe that better is possible, that are possibilistic, not only optimistic. And through that lens, I was moved back to New York 11 years ago to launch the most ambitious master plan for the planet and the people, called the Sustainable Development Goals. And I was in charge of communication and advocacy to make sure that we got as many countries and as many industries as possible adopting this framework and getting excited about it. So we created a brand, and we started getting, like on industries to believe that not only that better is possible, but that you could be part of those Avengers that are making the world a better place. So I think that with all that enthusiasm and all those years of 20 years of experience, I came to the US 11 years ago when I was working for the United Nations. And that was the first ever time I heard I was a Hispanic. I was like, what is this Hispanic thing? I'm a happy Mexican. What are you talking about? And I think that to answer throughout all these milestones that I have had, I think that the biggest milestone I had is realizing that for the first time, this is personal to me. I am a Latina. I married an American 8 years ago. And because of my choice, my daughter was going to be making 50% of the salary only because she is a Latina. And that didn't make sense. And that didn't make sense, Melissa, because the data is one thing. So if you look at the paper, the data is powerful. So why is the reality so weak? And why are the numbers so big and we ourselves, we feel so small? That is a reverse marketing problem. That is a PR problem that we have as Latinos. So whomever was doing the PR and the marketing for Latinos was trying to do everything possible to hide the real attributes that we have as a community and portraying us with associations that don't belong to us only. We're not only illegal migrants. We're not criminals. We're not, we're not only jobs that are going to be taken, and all these incredible biases and stereotypes were the piece that drove me to leave my job at the United Nations and to start trying to do pretty much a conversion of the perception of Latinos from takers to makers, from negative to positive, and from invisible to visible. That has been the focus of the World Human Foundation and Hispanic Star, which is to provide America with a sense that what is good for Latinos is good for America, because America is made of stars and we're one of them.
Yeah, incredible. I did a project during my graduate time in school in college, and my project was a toolkit because I'd ran into a piece of research early on in my career when I worked in a diversity and inclusion office for a corporation. And the research just blew my mind. Like, I'm super interested in what is the root cause. Like, if we dug into everything, like, what is that, upstream? Where can I go to stop a problem, to make a change? And I found a piece of research that just blew my mind. And it said, basically, in a certain type of, really, in many organizations and types of businesses, but essentially, it breaks down to, if you can make a Spanish speaking abuela, right? An older Spanish speaking woman happy and feel respected and welcomed in your organization, that has a crossover effect for every other type of customer. And I thought that was incredible. And I thought, well, gosh, yeah, that's kind of true, because how hard is it to to make my mother, the elder, particularly, women in my family, like, we're always asking for respect. We're always kind of demanding, always had an extra kind of eye on what we were doing and how we were saying things and what our faces were doing when we were talking as children. And they did. Kind of demand that. And so I thought that was really interesting. And so I built a whole toolkit around it, basically sharing best practices across a company on how you can make Spanish speaking customers, particularly those who are a little older, feel valued, included, respected, and that they belonged, right, in your storefront. And incredible crossover effect, very much like other aspects of our lives here in the US, like some of the accommodations we'd made for people with mobility challenges, like having cut-ins in the sidewalk, benefit all types of people, whether you're pushing a stroller or pulling a wagon or riding a bike, right? It's not only people in using a wheelchair who might really benefit from that accommodation. So there are these parts. It's true. If you can really connect with our Hispanic and Latino customers, there's often a reality in that cultural kind of strategy might benefit other types of people as well. And to your point, representation is not always does not always equal possibility if it's the wrong kind of representation, right? We're not only this or that. And no one person or types of people are, monolithic and only just something. But you're right. Some of the first images I ever saw of Hispanics and understanding the different terms that were created in the US and where that was created in the government, and kind of unpacking that, has been really interesting experience throughout my career. But I remember more in the beginning. What I saw was we were related to hospitality, whether we were cleaning rooms or we're not only folklorico dancers or mariachis or servers or cooks, right? So I think the more that we see mainstream images, representation, people like you and me having conversations on a microphone, it just kind of normalizes who does what in the country. And I think that more is going to be better. And we show all types of people and all types of jobs and all types of situations. So us as communicators, we do have more influence in that space. And so I'm excited we're talking about that, because we can help build positive change with that.
And that would be the call to action. I think that if there's one message that I have for this podcast is This is the time to act. And the professionals of communications and PR have a dramatic role to play to make sure that our next generation of Latinos are fully paid, fully respected, and fully seen. And it is possible. And here is the reason why I'm saying it with so much conviction. Because for 30 years, I've seen communities come out of nothing and thrive with a third or a tenth of what the Latino community has. We have the data with us. We are powerful. We're not inventing to be powerful. We're not packaging powerful. We're powerful. We're just not seen as that. We have the data that backs up if we become factivists, if we use PR to tell the messages correctly, if we use communication to transmit the stories that need to be told, then we're going to be able to correct the reverse marketing problem, which is much easier to fix than a product problem. We don't have a product problem. We're wonderful. We're beautiful. We're hardworking. We have the right values. We have the right data. We have the right moment, and we're feeding America. We're making America great, and we're feeding totally into what is called growth and progress, and it's exactly what everybody needs right now. And that is actually the power of communications that has been, like neglected because the community growth is there. The perception of the community is in crisis. We need to change that narrative because it's holding us back. It's closing the doors for us. It's creating barriers. It's creating barriers when we go to a bank and people don't want to give us access to capital because they have unconscious stereotypes about us. It's holding us back because women, Latinas, have a dramatic stereotyping perception associating us with our physical attributes, and therefore we're put into slow job positions because people see us as loud, sexy, the receptionist, or you're going to go to your family and therefore you're going to drop the ball, or you're Latina, you have an accent and therefore you're not as intelligent. We have to flip the script. We have the data to flip the script and to make sure that people understand having an accent doesn't mean that you're stupid. It means that you're bilingual. It means that you're bicultural. It means that you can talk to two different groups or more, that you're able to do negotiation because you're able, right? Basically, biculturalism and bilingualism means that you have other skill sets, even at the chemical level, even at the brain level. You're able to be more adaptable to circumstances. Therefore, you're unshakable in times of changes. And if we're able to flip the script and tell the right story, then Latinos are going to be able to take the rightful place that belongs to us. Not only that, we're going to be able to play the role that America needs us to play. And that is the invitation I have to come, Melissa, when you invited me to your podcast, to say, like, PR professionals, this is the time for us to take our responsibility and eye it up, because together we're going to be able to shift the narrative in the next couple of years so that Latinos are seen for what we are, positive contributors to the countries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has to be a plus strategy. There's abundance. There's enough for all. We create that abundance through our work and our collaboration together. And the reality is, the numbers don't lie in terms of growth. And so if we don't support all types of people, and if we don't support the facts, like you said, be a factivist, right? And our jobs as public relations professionals, then the society and the stakeholders we have to work with in the community, the need just grows, the gap just widens, and that's not going to be good for this country or anywhere else, right? When you have majorities in a city, but if they're not thriving, it's not going to help the city. So I think that's the reality is, from the personal level, I love the encouragement and confidence you're sharing, Claudia, because we do have to push ourselves to kind of fight against. Let's be clear, some of the things maybe we were brought up with that make us, that feel counterculture, to be a little more assertive and expressive, and to ask for that raise or move jobs when the environment's not supportive and respectful, or they're not paying you for a wage, right? To quit blending in, because that's not a great strategy for advancement, especially when times are tough, right? Being more resilient means you have to take a little bit of risk. And so I really appreciate that. And just to underline that from my position as an accredited public relations professional and now a PRSA College of Fellows member, is that the best public relation professionals understand we need to be truth tellers. in all times, not just good times and easy times, but in all times. And we can do that with calm and a gentleness about it and a unifying point of view, but it needs to happen. So I love that you're sharing the facts and that you've been doing that work personally, professionally, and through Hispanic Star to partner with so many companies and organizations, research institutions, and media outlets to really elevate that US Latino narrative. And that's really important. And Claudia, I want to ask you about the 2025, the most recent Hispanic Opportunity Toolkit. What were some of the key facts or findings? I know you've shared some of them, but is there anything else you'd want to share that help us advance conversations about Latino contributions or influence in the U.S., particularly in a time where maybe some folks are telling a much different story?
I think that one of the biggest pieces that I've been able to see is how low is the awareness first of Latinos of their own contributions to the country, which, as I shared before, has been able to grow dramatically. And so we're almost there. Almost every Latino, 2/3 of Latinos know that they're powerful. Now we have to go and together join forces to educate the other non-Latinos, right? Like the other groups that don't know. So there's no awareness of our data. And I think that I've seen in the last 10 years how much more data is being produced. And I'm super grateful for those sponsors and people that are putting money on the table to have more data. What doesn't get measured doesn't get count. What doesn't get count cannot be measured and therefore cannot be actioned. And with that data, what we have done for 6 consecutive years is put together a toolkit with unified data sets, unified messaging frameworks, and unified communication assets so that professionals, professional PRs, companies, brands, agencies, and media can access those assets, that toolkit, and be able to go and activate and amplify. So what is that data set say this year? 5 key points. Number one, Latinos are the people. 65 million people, 20% of the population, and growing to 30% of the population by 2060. 1 in every 3 Americans will be a Latino. Hello, hello, hola. Why is that? Because we're the most common interracial marriage country in the world. We're very generous with our love, but also because we're expansive, right? Like we're so pretty much. I think that there's a population size. Number two, data number two, the age. The Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, whatever you want to call us, we don't care as long as you pay us well. This cohort is absolutely the youngest of every other group. Our average age is 27 years old, which is already 10 years younger than the rest of the population. But then the data point that we're highlighting this year is the mode, not the average, not the median, the mode, the most common age. The most common age of 65 million people this year is 17 years old. The most common age of 65 million Latinos today is 17. Let that pause for a second. Let that sink. The most common age of non-Latino whites is 63. That's why we're talking about this is the most significant market opportunity for America in the next 4 decades, secular growth for 4 decades, because we're not only many, but we're also the youngest. 20% of the alpha, 20% of Gen Zs, 25% of alpha. The more you look, the younger you look, the more Latinos you will find. And that is data point number two, that 1763. Data point number three of the toolkit is economic, the size of the economy, $4.1 trillion. Just to put that into perspective, Mexico is $1.7 trillion, the size of the Mexican economy. If Latinos would be a standalone economy, as Latino Donor Collaborative says in the report, will be the 5th largest economy in the world, going to the 4th largest economy in the world by 2029. So that means that we generate the amount of GDP, the gross domestic product that we generate with that so much economic movement, that we're 20% of the GDP. That is unparalleled. Melissa, if you're thinking about it, we're 20% of the population with 20% of the GDP. That doesn't happen. It's not a newborns produce economy, right? Like we're like a triple the engine, like triple the speed. So data point number four is the consumer, the purchasing power. The purchasing power of Latinos is $4 trillion. The African American purchasing power, just to put it in comparative, is $1 trillion. We're 4. And that was 3.8 last year. So it's dramatically growing at hockey stick form growth. And That is not only the size of our wallet, but how long, because if you think how many we are and how young we are and how much we produce, then the consumer lifespan of a Latino, the value of a Latino consumer lifetime is 12 years longer than other non-Latino groups. That means we are able in our lifetime, we're going to be able to be a consumer, like a target for a brand for 50 years. If you're a non-Latino white, it's 38 because you start later and you end earlier. And we actually start really early of being consumers and we go all the way out being consumers. So we're giving you 12 more years of being a consumer. And the last piece is that we're entrepreneurial. I don't know any Latino who doesn't have, like me now, a desire to do entrepreneurship. 1 in every 5 entrepreneurs in this country is a Latino. Latinas generate 18%, 18 times, not 18%, 18 times more small businesses than any other group in America. That makes us the job creator #1 in the country. And everything that I'm just saying, all those 5 points together, what really it means is that this is the opportunity. Latinos are America's growth opportunity. And I hope that practitioners, PR, communication industry leaders are able to tap into that data and to start building your business cases so that you can grow. Be the hero of your company. Bring the growth opportunity to your bosses and make sure that they understand that this is not about communication. This is about growth. This is about building the business case. And that is what the toolkit says. And that is what I think that all of us should be able to tap and do, particularly because if you combine that with the sentiment of Latinos today that are self-aware of what I just said, then you're going to have a consumer and a citizen that is expecting more. So your job as a practitioner has just getting a bit more interesting and important, because not only this is a growing opportunity, but that growing opportunity market has higher expectations.
Oh, so well said. And I took a ton of notes, and we'll be sure to link to the toolkit and some of the resources you're mentioning during the show for everyone to dig into. But what I'm hearing from you is Latinos are America's growth opportunity. From a public relations point of view, from my point of view, I'm hearing that Latinos are the long game, right? Connect with us now. Gosh, imagine connect with us now at 17, at such a young age, and have these wonderful, caring, deeply loyal customers, stakeholders, supporters, fundraisers, employees for a long time. And so if in PR and communication, you're thinking about the win-win strategy and, a long-term outcome and effect, then you will pay attention to this data and you will accommodate your images, your messages, your narratives, your products, your services, your organizations, your hiring practices in all these ways because it just makes sense.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, all of this has been super informational, inspiring, educational, and there's so much more we can learn and do. So I'm looking forward to walking that path with you, Claudia. But in terms of, any final tips on how to be more visible without seeming unnecessarily loud, particularly if that is something in a Latino's cultural or family narrative. Do you have any tips on that, last points on that? And then we'll share some information for our listeners.
So visibility is really an interesting topic right now. We've been talking about it and trying to digest what does it mean for companies, what does it mean for individuals, particularly in a time where you have so much anti-everything, anti-DEI, corporate paralysis, and so on. And I do think that it is an interesting challenge that every practitioner has to be paying attention. As Latinos, the only thing that I would say as individuals, it is hyper important to understand that in times of crisis, you need to be smart and you need to be strategic, but you also have to be connected. So I think that B2B visibility among your peers and trying actually to make sure that you're building the connections and that you're building your brand within a group of people that matters is super important, whether you are doing external visibility or not. As companies, I would say the most important piece is to recognize that removing visibility could be removing touch. could be removing connection, particularly if it feels like a betrayal or a removal from promises and values. So make sure that whatever you're navigating, you're not removing programs, you're not removing touch, you're not removing connection, and that you're able to communicate properly the reasons why, or how do you plan to stay connected. You don't have to put ads, you don't have to do visibility that is like splash on your face and that is going to cause you legal issues. But I do think that it is an incredibly important time to be visible in the right dose, in the right environments, in the right people. And that is why, Melissa, we are adapting at the World Human Foundation. We have launched a number of programs like individual memberships as opposed to only corporate memberships, so that individuals can continue building those networks, can continue building that visibility piece that is essential, and can continue getting access to not only the networks, but for the insights. And part of that is what we're intending to do, this Hispanic Leadership Summit taking place 29 and 30 of October here in New York. Taking place partly at the United Nations, where we're going to gather the most important Latino leaders and allies to be able to have these type of discussions that you and I are having about narrative, about objectives, about like correcting the story in a way that transforms it into a business case so that everybody can thrive. So this is an open invitation for all your listeners, Melissa, to join us at the Hispanic Star at the World Human Foundation, to come and participate at the Hispanic Leadership Summit, and to make use of the data that we have, which I think is really an essential piece and an asset for the Latino community in these times and for the future.
Yeah, that sounds like really helpful principles to move through this, move forward. So thank you so much. Well, Claudia, I love to ask my listeners this particular question because I'm trying to get people to have conversations of substance. So maybe that's context for you. But what does smart talk mean to you?
Smart talk is what we need to be doing. This is what we all need to be doing as Latino communities. We are natural networkers for pleasure. We now need to be natural networkers for purpose. We need to be natural talkers with smart. And that for me means that you put an intention in what you're doing and you put data behind it so that we can correct the pieces that are pertinent to us, which is removing the stereotypes and the biases that exist to us so that we can be portraying us as what we are: positive contributors to the country and stars of this country.
Ah, so smart. Love it. Claudia, this has been incredible. What's the best way for listeners to connect with you?
HispanicStar.org, weareallhuman.org, or Claudia Romo Edelman in every social media outlet.
I love it. Well, thank you, Claudia, for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you so very much. That was awesome.
Thanks to our listeners for joining me for today's episode. We love covering communication topics that elevate our industry practice. If you'd like to go deeper, you can work with me as a coach, trainer, consultant, or hire my firm, MVW Communications, for strategic communication and public relations services. My industry books, Smart Talk, Public Relations Essentials All Pros Should Know, and Latinas in Public Relations, Shaping Communications, Communities, and Culture, are also available for purchase on Amazon. Grab your copy there, and please leave us a supportive review. Book reviews and podcast reviews help more aspiring or hardworking pros find our resources. As always, think smart and communicate smart. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Smart Talk series. If you learned something or enjoyed our conversation, share it on social media or send to a friend. To learn more about this and other communication topics, visit mvw360.com. That's mvw360.com.